Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to start now. There might be a few more joiners as we go. Welcome everybody to this event, which we're launching the next phase of the Industrial Energy Efficiency Accelerator, which opens today for applications. So it was about 4 years ago, we held a series of 4 events for the first phase of the Industrial Energy Efficiency Accelerator, which I'll call the IEEA, where I personally heard about some amazing ideas from shape memory alloys to low carbon concretes and plenty more besides. And over that time, we've had lots of projects and learnt a lot of lessons. And now we're pleased to be here today announcing the next phase. Obviously, a lot of things have changed over that time, and it's a shame that I can't be there to present to you in person. But I'm really pleased to be able to welcome so many of you to this online event. And hopefully that's at least gives the opportunity for as many as possible people to take part. And I'm going to tell you about, the team are going to tell you about the next phase of the program and hopefully encourage you to take part. Next slide. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We will tell you what the IEEA is, what sort of projects are eligible, how to go about applying, along with some tips and lessons from previous rounds, which hopefully you'll find helpful. And then interspersed between those talks, we're going to include some case studies from the current IEEA, and hopefully that will bring it to life a bit and just show the real benefits of taking part from those who've been through the process. We'll also tell you about the support that the delivery partners can provide throughout that process, and encourage you to sign up to the meeting mojo, which you should have been sent a link for, so that you can then just carry on discussions with other attendees at the event, during the event, after the event, arrange discussions as you wish. We'll tell you more about that later, but you have the link, so do feel free to sign up at any time. Please submit questions as we go along in the chat area. We'll have a couple of sessions to get back to answer as many as we can, or if not, we'll come back to you after the event. So there's a question session in the middle and one at the end. Next slide. So I'm going to kick off with a short summary of what the IEEA is all about. Some of this has already been covered in the introductory webinars, which you might have been to. So I'll try and keep this bit quite brief, but hopefully it's a useful refresher. So the IEEA is a BEIS innovation competition. It's part of the BEIS Net Zero Innovation Portfolio, and it's managed on their behalf by the Carbon Trust. So we work very closely in partnership with BEIS to deliver the programme. And then also we have the support of Jacobs, who lead on the technical aspects of the programme, and KTN, who support with the networking and engagement activities. And I'm pleased to say you'll be hearing from representatives of all the partners today. So I'm going to try and summarise what the IEEA is on one slide. In fact, I hope it's all in the title, actually. So the IEEA supports demonstration projects, UK industrial sites, and the demonstrators should be the first UK commercial implementation or industrial implementation within a sector for a novel process or a novel energy or resource efficiency technology applied to the process. So that's quite a lot of different aspects, and we'll cover those off as we go through the day. But fundamentally, we're doing demonstration projects, UK industrial sites of new technologies for energy and resource efficiency. So the primary aim of that, sorry if you go back, the primary aim of that is to deliver long-term reduced carbon emissions through demonstrating and monitoring these technologies on site, and then encouraging their widespread replication throughout industry. Obviously, as well as carbon savings, this also brings competitiveness benefits to both to the technology developers and also the industrial producers, and hopefully should encourage future investment in industry as well. So we're technology neutral, but we're looking for technologies which have a sort of wide cross-sector rollout. So they don't have to be cross-sectoral, but preferably. Next slide. So today we're launching phase 3 of the IEEA. Phases 1 and 2 begun 3 and 4 years ago and led to the award of £8 million across 16 really good projects. Some of these completed and the rest suffered delays due to the pandemic, impacts of the pandemic, but they'll be completing in the next few weeks in some cases or months. So for IEEA Phase 3 and 4, there's another £8 million in grant funding on offer. Applications open today, and you can apply for grants of typically between £150,000 and £1 million per project. And most projects receive on average about somewhere between 40 and 60% of the total project costs. Next slide. This is one of my favorite slides, actually. Because it just demonstrates how wide a range of technologies and sectors we've supported so far. The sectors range from data centers to paper making to water treatment and low carbon cement. And the technologies range from sort of animal waste processing through to graphene oxide nanotechnology, which you'll hear more about in a minute, as well as the sort of more common heat recovery, still novel, but more usual maybe heat recovery or waste treatment, or sort of novel motors and compressed air delivery. So there's a really wide range. We'd obviously like to see, there's good geographical coverage within England, but we'd definitely like to see more applications from Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So we're very keen to talk to potential applicants in the devolved administrations. Next slide. So now, before I say any more about the programme, I'd like to introduce you to the first case study from the IEEA Phase 2, so that you get to hear, I suppose, what a real difference the projects can make to both the technology developers and their industrial partners. So I'm delighted to welcome Craig Clement, who's the COO of G2O Water Technologies, to tell you more about his project.
Hi, thank you, Paul. Hopefully everybody can hear me. To move on to the first slide, if that's okay. Thank you. So yes, I'm from G2O Water Technologies. We're an SME based in the northwest of England at the SciTech Park in Daresbury. Our business is focused on developing advanced membrane technology designed to reduce the cost and environmental impact of water filtration. Our first generation of technology is nanotechnology coatings designed to improve existing membranes. We're a fast-growing technology company. During the program, we've doubled our headcount. We're now at 20 people in our organization. And so I'd just like to give you an overview of our first industrial demonstrator project that has benefited from £450,000 of funding from the IEEA as part of the Phase 2 program. The project is all about recycling industrial laundry wastewater. So we've been working with the end industrial partner Johnson's, who wash hotel linen, chef's wear in the industrial sites. And the idea of the project is that we are cleaning up the wastewater coming out of the washing machines. So there is, we're taking the hot, dirty water, we're cleaning that water, and we're putting the hot water back into the washing cycle. So from that, there is clearly not only a water saving, but a substantial energy saving as well. So how does the technology work? Well, G2O have developed a graphene oxide formulated coating that's shown on the left-hand side here. And we've applied that coating to industrially available ceramic membranes. So here you can see a hollow fiber ceramic membrane, an 8-inch membrane. And we've applied that coating to improve the fouling resistance of these membranes. And in the photograph in the middle, you can see the system that has 18 of these membranes on the system. And you can see at the bottom there, when we're recycling this water, we're taking the very dirty, high turbidity water is shown on the left-hand side, and cleaning that water with this system. So what can Johnson's expect from this? What are we showing through this demonstration project? Well, per annum, we're saving around about 2 gigawatt hours in energy, 300 tons of CO2, around 20,000 cubic meters in water, with a financial saving, in excess of £100,000 per year. Next slide, please. So we've been working with Mike Range, the engineering manager at Johnson's at their site in Shaftesbury, where we've installed this system. Mike's saying, we've tried a number of systems over the last few years that haven't worked because of the type of waste stream. It's a difficult waste stream. The new system is working well for us and we're having lots of positive results. So I think it's quite an important point that Mike makes here, which is that, historically in this fairly small industry in the UK, there's been attempts to install recycling systems and they've failed. And so across the industry, there's been quite a skepticism and reluctance to invest in new projects that are quite expensive to attempt to recycle this industrial laundry wastewater. So the funding we've had from the IEEA has been critical to getting this off the ground. I've no doubt that without this funding, this technology wouldn't be where it is today. Next slide, please. We've also been working with Alex Brennan, who heads up sustainability at Johnson Service Group. Her quote here, we know that we are hugely water intensive, and so technologies to reduce the reliance on water have a massive benefit. We're excited with the results, and we are looking potentially to roll this out over all 40 of our sites across the Johnson Service Group. This could be a huge game changer for us. Where we are at the moment, we're just now a few weeks from the end of the project. We're aggregating all our results, and we are now in discussions with the senior team at Johnson's as to how they can adopt this technology nationwide.
Thank you, Craig. It's fantastic to hear about how these sort of real cutting edge technologies can actually be moved out of the lab and into sort of deployed for real in the industrial sector.
Yeah.
So thank you. Right, so now we're going to move on to some of the more practical aspects, and I'd like to run through what sort of projects are and aren't eligible for the next phase of the IEEA. So firstly, as I mentioned before, the scope has been expanded. In fact, I'm not sure I have mentioned before, but the scope for the next phase has been expanded to cover energy and resource efficiency projects. So the focus is still on carbon saving and helping in the journey to net zero in the industrial sector, but resource savings are increasingly important part of that. So we're looking for reduction of carbon emissions evidenced through energy or resource efficiency. The technology has to be novel, but also potentially it could be a technology that's been used before elsewhere, but maybe is being used for the first time in the UK in the proposed sector. And there's some significant barriers to the uptake where a demonstration will make the difference between, once it's been demonstrated once, then it can take off in the UK. We're looking for process technologies, so effectively the efficiency has to be involved in the production process, so not, for example, in distribution, sort of transportation, and not in the use of the product. So it's not about making a more efficient building material, say, that's more efficient in use. It's about producing it more efficiently. And just as importantly as sort of coming up with exciting technologies is the commercial potential. So clearly what we're looking for is technologies that can be commercialized and scaled up, because then that's where the real impact will be generated. So there's more details of all the eligibility and assessment criteria in the guidance notes for the competition, which we'll talk about later. Next slide. On this slide, I've just tried to lay out the types of projects which are and aren't in scope along those lines. So I've talked about energy saving. So there's lots of energy saving type projects, but what we're really looking for here is effectively the reduction of the number of kilowatt hours used on site. in the industrial process. So we're not looking at fuel switching, for example, which might be lower carbon, and there's a separate competition for that. We're not looking at the building fabric and building services. We're not looking at renewable energy. This is about energy efficiency. In terms of resource efficiency, there's both water, waste, and materials. So that can include reduced use of water, reduced waste production, and or reuse of water or waste within the production process again, but not we're not looking at certainly for the primary benefit of reduced transportation or and certainly within the water sector, we're looking for applicability for those projects then throughout in industrial sectors as well. When it comes to material intensity, so that might be reduced raw material use to make whatever product that you're making, or potentially, as long as you can demonstrate the carbon reduction impact, the use of low carbon alternatives and recycling and reuse of materials. In those cases, it would be good to have the sort of material supplier as part of the project as well as the user of it. And then I've mentioned digital on here, which digital's was always part of the last program, and we've got an excellent project producing a digital twin for a paper industry. But we're wanting to encourage this, and so projects which with enhanced controls and process learning that reduce your energy and waste and raw materials use in scope. But there needs to be actual implementation of the results. So it's not just about the data analysis; it's about implementing the results of that. Next slide. And in terms of the level of the sort of development of the technology, the program supports technologies which are currently TRL 5 to TRL 8, so at least validated in the sort of relevant environment. And we're looking for those projects to be progressed to TRL 8 or 9 during the project. Obviously, if the projects are lower TRL at the start, so TRL 5, they might well have sort of 2 phases to them, effectively a sort of bit more development to bring them up a bit higher before they then get demonstrated on site. But then we need good evidence that they will sort of complete that journey through the course of the project. This archery slide is intended to show that so there's a range of potential processes that your project could address, and that starts with at the center you've got the key unit operations. So effectively that's the sort of core production process. So it might be the glass furnace or ceramics kiln or the chemical reactor, and their projects potentially might have a really high impact, step change impact, but they might be less. They might only be replicable in the glass sector or the chemical sector, so less sector replication, and then right through to sort of utilities like compressed air and motors, where the actual savings might be, 1 or 2%, but potentially they could be applicable across the wide range of industries. And typically the or even sort of conveying and sort of technologies on the outer edge. And we have projects from across the range within IEEA so far, but typically we are looking for that where they're applicable in a sector, or they tend to score better when they're applicable in a sector, but then have replication potential elsewhere. So in terms of sectors, the IEEA focuses across the industrial sector. So obviously all of the manufacturing sectors, but also a bit broader in terms of aggregates and quarrying, and then the water and waste and construction materials, manufacture of construction materials sectors, and also data centers included in a number of these BEIS competitions as well. So do talk to us about whether your sector and your process is eligible. We do ask for the SIC codes as a guide, but recognise that your company SIC code might not be a reflection of what actually goes on in one of your process sites. They're used as a good indicator. But what's essential at the end of the day is that the technology that's being demonstrated is seen as representative for wider industry uptake, so that once, I don't know, it's been seen on one site, other industrial partners will say, yeah, that's representative of what I do, and therefore I can have confidence to roll that out at my company. And then next, finally, there's a list here of some areas that are out of scope. So we're focused on efficiency rather than power generation or fuel supply. We're focused on industrial processes rather than, say, buildings or transportation. So out of scope are things like lighting and space heating, electricity generation, storage technologies, on-site renewables, so no wind turbines and solar panels. Carbon capture, storage and use is covered by a number of other BEIS funding programs, so that's not covered. Production of fuels is not covered. Again, things like hydrogen are covered by other BEIS programs. And then transportation is not covered either. So next slide. And in terms of the organisations that can apply, so typically we see partnerships of 2 to 4 organisations. Often they're led by the technology developer of the novel technology, but not always. There must be an industrial partner with a suitable demonstration site. There could just be the industrial partner, but normally there's a collaboration. And some of the consortia will include trade bodies and research organisations, universities, specialist technology suppliers. So one organisation has to take the lead as the applicant. They sign the grant agreement with BEIS, and then they need their own collaboration agreement between all the parties involved. So I'm going to finish off this section with, so why do all this? What's the benefits? And clearly the funding, as I said, typically half of the project cost can be funded through grant, and that's a major reason why companies take part. But also, I think there's a lot more to it than that. So, and that's right from the start. We'd like to support with companies finding partners for to support their applications. We can help you through the application process, which you'll hear about later. And then once the projects are going, for the technology developers, we provide acceleration, incubation type support to help with that can help with anything from sort of market research, market understanding, research, business planning, intellectual property protection, commercialization aspects like sort of building the team and growth plans, and also providing marketing support as well and so many of the technology developers are often quite small companies. They don't have big marketing departments, and we can provide support with how to get the message out to the market at the end of the project. And then for the industry partners, obviously, again, potentially the funding allows them to do something that just wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. It would be too high risk. But also, I think they go on a sort of learning journey. So I've talked about first mover advantage here, and I know often industrial companies will wait to see someone else take the plunge first, and then they want to see it proven before they're prepared to take the risk on their own production. But I think the companies that have been involved in IEEA so far have, there's a real learning curve they go through, so that by the end of it, they know all about the benefits, the teething problems of implementing the technology, and they it just makes them more ready to be able to roll that out rapidly, compared with having seen it done in another company, and then clearly that proves it can be done, but then the learning curve has to sort of start from there. So so there's a quote on the bottom here from one of our participants in phase 1. Actually, potential customers being able to come and see a full-scale piece of equipment in site really convince them that it can work for them. So having said what I think the benefits are, I'm now going to hand over to Adam Moody of United Utilities, who can tell you a bit about their IEA project and how that's helping United Utilities contribute to their decarbonisation journey. So over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Paul. Yep, hi everybody, I'm Adam Moody. I'm a project engineering manager for United Utilities, and we were involved with phase 2 of the IEEA. I'm here, as Paul said, just to give you a few insights. I won't be very long, honestly, about our reflections on how it's helped us as an industrial partner. Okay, next slide, please. So, as a bit of background, United Utilities is a water and wastewater company servicing all of the northwest of England. And as I said before, we were the industrial partner, and Evergreen Water Solutions were the lead partner and technology developer, and worked together on the Volute project. I think the first thing to say is that the IEEA is a very good fit for us as United Utilities, as we have committed to be net zero by 2030, and carbon emissions reduction and obviously power reduction is obviously a very important part of that journey, and anything that we can do to help overcome the challenges that we've all got is very welcome. So a little bit on the background of the project. Essentially, the Volute is a replacement technology for centrifuges, and in the water industry, there is a lot of processes that require basically separating solids from liquids, and very often this is achieved with centrifuges. The Volute is a replacement for that, and essentially what we've managed to do as part of the trial work and development is prove quite beyond doubt that the power consumption from the Volute is basically 80% less than a typical centrifuge to do the same duty. So just a bit of a background on sort of some of my reflections on the overall program, rather than focusing kind of on the results. We had worked with Evergreen Water Solutions prior to this proposal and this work, but when we found out about the IEEA, it looked like a great opportunity to work with them on their new technology that they'd got coming through, and to also work collaboratively with them. So we developed a proposal, and we were going to provide the host site, which is on our largest wastewater treatment site in Manchester. And as we developed the proposal together, I think both Evergreen and UU gained massively from the collaborative nature of the programme, because we were both very much bought into what we wanted to do. And then once we were successful, I think from our point of view as the industry partner, it allowed us to get involved very much up front in the design of the work, to tailor it really to tailor the equipment to our needs. And that meant that the deployment of it on site was much easier. The grant funding has allowed us to gain a much deeper understanding of the technology, because essentially with that extra money going into the project, it's meant that we could extend the trial and actually really get into the nuts and bolts of how everything works. So I guess, overall, we found that the programme has been a great help with pushing things forward. And now that we are complete and the results are kind of out in the open, it means that we're already planning our next stages. We're likely to carry on to do a bit more test work with that confidence that essentially we have got something that we want to continue with. But we're also focused on actually how we're going to deploy this technology. And I don't think that we would have been at this stage if it hadn't been, being part and parcel of the IEEA programme. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. So yeah, and it's been really great to have you, as such a core part of that project as well. And it's a real partnership when we have our sort of the regular catch-up meetings and everyone's contributing to it. So thank you. So now, before later on, my colleague Sabrina is going to talk a bit about the nuts and bolts of how to apply. But before that, I'm just going to ask Andrew Moore, who's our technical lead at Jacobs, to just talk a little bit about some of the feedback from the previous rounds on pulling together a successful partnership and a strong application, and just as importantly, a sort of project that can be delivered. So hand over to you now, Andrew.
Thanks, Paul. So good morning, I'm Andrew Moore from Jacobs, and as Paul just said, technical lead for the programme. So I've had the pleasure of working on the IEEA programme for the last 4+ years since the start of phase 1. So I've been involved in the review of all previous applications. So as Paul says, the purpose of the next few slides is to share some tips and learnings from the previous phases in terms of preparing a strong application. So one of the aspects that we've previously found, particularly, is that as a technology developer, likely to have been developing and immersed in the technology for quite some time. So therefore, in the applications, often the clarity isn't there for someone who's reviewing an application when they're coming into it fresh. So one of the things that's maybe not explicitly stated here is obviously clear background to the technology, but also do consider a well annotated diagram or process flow diagram. It can be added as an attachment to the application, and whilst our technical review team won't sift through large volumes of additional material that's uploaded, I can certainly assure you that they'll be pulling out any diagrams, flow diagrams that help explain the technology and or the project in its entirety. As Paul mentioned earlier, part of the understanding is the background to technology and how that progresses from its current TRL to TRL 8/9 in the demonstration project. Understanding that journey is really important, and particularly where projects start at TRL 5/6, need clarity in the application of the acceleration that needs to happen such that we end up with a strong demonstration project. We also generally see a bias in applications towards the technology and a less the focus on what the actual demonstration project is going to be or how it's actually integrated into the industrial process. It's not unusual, and on the basis that, of course, often many of the technology developers have found the industrial partner as part of the actual program. So it's clear that it's less developed in that thinking, but certainly an area for focus when considering an application and working strongly with industrial partner or other consortium members. And as the projects are innovative or novel and they're requiring support and apply to the programme to help accelerate them, being clear on what the challenges and the barriers to overcome. It's all part of explaining the demonstration that's going to be delivered, what the steps are that need to occur, the development process, and the ultimate demonstration that will have removed those barriers and solved the challenges. And the final point on this slide is please do take advantage of asking the IEEA team. We're here to help and support during the application process, so please do ask questions. So turning to the project team and project management, clearly we're bringing together 2, sometimes 3 partners, technology developer and industrial partner, potentially an academic partner or others. We've had a previous project with 5 partners, for example, but as I've previously said, a lot of cases where these teams are coming together in a relatively short period of time to apply to the programme. So it's really important as part of preparing for the application and indeed the response that's submitted to be clear on how that team is going to work together, the roles, who's responsible for each element. And from an assessment perspective, it's about the assessment panel having the confidence that a project can be successfully managed and delivered. And it's often less clear about the structure or the ways of working outside of the technology developer team, which typically is the lead partner that's applying into the programme. I can't emphasise enough that the industrial partner is a crucial element in the programme, and they shouldn't simply be seen as the end of the project host. So working with the industrial partner, understanding how the technology is going to be integrated into the process and what that demonstration project will actually be is a significant part of the programme. And the industrial partner should certainly be actively involved in that whole process and a key member of the project team. And lastly, for risk management, of course, there are always some standard risks to call out, but the stronger applications we see are those where they've shown they have a strong risk management process, but also that they've shown good consideration as being given to the risks as seen at the point of applying. Ultimately, they are development projects, demonstrations, but seeing from the outset that risk management is well thought through just gives confidence that risks and issues will continue to be managed through delivery of a project. So the final slide, I just want to talk about monitoring and benefits. Ultimately, an applicant is set out in the application a set of objectives for the success and the demonstration, and generally that's associated to the efficiency benefits that the project will deliver. It's important to be clear within the project what it has to measure and the data that will be required to actually demonstrate its success. And it's important to give consideration to the baseline against which the success is going to be measured. And again, the industrial partner certainly needs to be involved here. Is there sufficient metering or measurement available on the existing parts of the process when the new technology is going to be applied to measure the baseline of which against the demonstration project will be compared? And if not, upfront making consideration of that, making sure that that's accounted for in project costs and that additional metering and measurements factored in. And as a general tip on kind of the monitoring and benefits aspect is to step back and consider what other potential adopters would want to see. Simple and clear performance data. Ask the industrial partner to say what would it be that they need to see at the end of the project to give them confidence. Say, we want to deploy this further. So stepping back and just giving real careful consideration to what does need to be measured and keeping things clear and simple. That also relates to keeping the benefits calculations clear, assumptions well laid out, and avoiding attaching complex spreadsheets. Clear summaries of the basis for calculations is best. It just makes it so much easier for a technology reviewer rather than trying to unpick very complex spreadsheets, and that allows them to focus on actually being able to review the application and form confidence of the information that's given. And as a final point, I'm going to reiterate that from my experience, the best applications that we have seen have always been those where it's clear that the industrial partner has been involved in those discussions leading up to the preparation of application. I say even beyond the industrial partner, but the consortium, all the partners have had an active engagement in that process, but certainly the industrial partner where they're going to ultimately demonstrate this and be the reference case that's going to say, this really worked for us and others should look to adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. So lots of tips in there. These slides and the whole presentation will be available after the event for you to go back and see. Look at that again, so that you can really delve into what Andrew's suggested we're looking for. So next I'm going to hand over to my colleague Sabrina Kleisel, who has been working on the current round of the IEEA for nearly as long as it's been running. She works with all the current companies, so really understands the importance of, I suppose, getting the application right in the first place, because that ultimately is what gets written into your grant agreement and what you're expected to deliver. So Sabrina's going to tell you about the application process and some of the new aspects to the current round. And after Sabrina, we'll have some time to answer some questions. Some coming in already. Do keep posting those, and then so we'll have a break for questions, and then we'll carry on with the to hear from BEIS and one of the other case studies after that, and also about the networking side after the questions. Thank you, Sabrina.
Great, thank you, Paul, and welcome everyone, also from my side. So yeah, as Paul mentioned, over the next couple of minutes, I'll walk you through the application process, which will include like a brief introduction to the overall application process, and then I'll also going to share some key information from our IEEA guidance note that's available to you, and highlight any key dates that you should consider when planning an application. So yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. So firstly, we have put together a quite extensive guidance note. It contains all the necessary information on the processes involved, eligibility, financing, and funding rules. So it's highly recommended that you read through the guidance provided before starting an application. And you can also, or you should also, review the application form and the draft grant funding agreement to ensure that you find the terms and conditions acceptable. You can access and download all these documents from our IEEA website at comtrust.com/IEEA. So all applications will be made via an online smart survey form. So to start an application, just access the application form through the IEEA website. You can save your progress and return to the application form at any time, and the application form will go live today. You will also be able to download a Word version of the application form, which you can use to build a draft and share between partners to gather data and agree on the content before then submitting online. So the IEEA team can also provide advice on completing the application form. So please do ask us if you have any questions about this. We will run clinics and also arrange one-to-one discussions to review particular aspects of your proposal, such as how best to demonstrate the potential energy and resource savings. We can also offer a full review of your application form if you send this to us like well before the application deadline, and preferably not later than the 7th of January. So please note that the deadline to submit a full application via the smart survey platform is at 3 p.m. on the 31st of January. And yeah, allow plenty of time before the submission deadline to upload all your answers and documents. And we can only accept applications submitted through the online system. So there won't be an option to submit them via email. Next slide, please. So yeah, the application process. So there are several steps to consider here. The first step should always be to submit a project idea via our IEEA website. So we just ask a couple of questions that help in our technical team to assess the project idea and to see if it's likely going to be in or out of scope for this program. This has already been open now for a couple of weeks, and thank you to everyone who has already made use of it. The idea submission form will remain open until the end of the application window, and should always be your first step when considering an IE application. Then, yeah, as mentioned, application windows now is open from today. And yeah, just a quick run through. So once the project teams have submitted a full and legible application, we may invite you to an interview to clarify the project with the IEEA technical team following the end of the application window. And after that, the assessment panel will convene to review the applications and decide on the funding awards. We will then inform all applicants of the decision concerning their application, and we will provide feedback on those as well. Next slide, please. So yeah, as mentioned before, application open from today and will close at the end of January 2022. Applicants will be informed then about the assessment panel decision in March, following due diligence checks and the signing of the grant funding agreement. All the successful selected projects then need to commence before the end of May and need to finish latest by May 2024. There's up to £8 million of funding allocated across both phases, so phase 3 and phase 4. However, and yeah, we need to stress this, if there are sufficient strong applicants in phase 3, so during the current application window, the entire budget might be allocated and we won't run a phase 4. So if you have a project idea, then please apply now in this application window, as there might not be a phase 4, so there won't maybe not be another application window. I think as Paul mentioned before as well, so we expect grant awards to be in the range of £150,000 to £1 million, with a scope to support a small number of projects which are outside of this range. And before you submit the application, please make sure to read the guidance note, review the application form and the draft grant funding agreement, which, yeah, as I said, are all available on our Carbon Trust IEEA website. And so the application itself then will be made through the online application on the Smart Survey platform, which you don't need to register on that site to use. So you will just start filling in the application form, and once you click save, you will be emailed a link that you can use then to go back when you need to. And yeah, you feel free to share the link with your partners, but just be aware to only share this with people who you want to see and edit the form. And throughout the entire process, we are very happy to support, and we offer various support services like the project idea review and also partnership support. But I won't go into more detail now, as we will have a separate presentation about this later today. Next slide, please. So yeah, the guidance note goes into a lot of detail also regarding financing and funding rules. So once again, make sure to review the guidance note before starting your application. You will, as part of the application, you will also need to complete a finance form detailing all the expenditure, eligible costs, and grant amount requested, and match funding. So the IEEA will only award funding where it can be demonstrated that the grant requested is directly needed for the cost of the demonstration project. So it's your responsibility to ensure that these details are correct and are all in line with the relevant subsidy rules and regulations. And also please make sure that you have the necessary match funding in place to the extent needed according to the subsidy rules and the funding intensity. So this will be depending on company size and the type of activities undertaken. Very briefly, application itself is divided into 5 key score sections, as you can see. They're up on the slide, and they all have different weightings. So just be aware of this. And then one final thing is the after submission process. So I touched upon this earlier. The team will conduct eligibility checks following your application being submitted. The applications will then be assessed by the assessment panel, which will decide on grant funding awards. Applicants will then be notified about the panel's decision and receive feedback. And then successful applicants will undergo due diligence checks and sign the grant offer letter and grant funding agreement before then the project will commence. There's also a section in the guidance note that talks about project delivery and what is being required from you during that time. So please have a look at that. And then last slide from my side, so the application checklist. So if you're in doubt, just refer back to this checklist, which is also available in the application guidance note, which just summarizes the documents that are part of a complete application. So it will be a completed application form. So that's the online form, which you can access and is available on the IEEA website. A project success criteria table and energy resource saving tables. So both templates are part of the online form. Finance workbook. Again, you will find the template provided on the IEEA application portal. A project plan, including a Gantt chart, and the table describing your work packages, a project team organogram, and a completed risk register. So all these should be uploaded into the application portal. And also, as mentioned before, there's the opportunity to submit any additional documentation that might be letters of support from your partners or any other supporting information that you think makes a good case for your application. Feel free to upload them to the application portal as well. But it's not, don't assume everything will be reviewed as from this optional document package. So yeah, don't rely on any key information that's only available in those annexes. Make sure everything is in the application form. And I think with that, that's all from my side. And yeah, happy now to take any questions from the audience before we move on to hear from BEIS directly.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. And just both Sabrina and Andrew have both highlighted, do please get in touch and either ask questions today or contact us through the website and the email address to ask any questions about the application process. So we're just going to stop now for a bit of time to answer any questions that you may have. You can put into the chat. There's a few come in already, so there's one or two that I'll handle straight away, and then I'll hand over to some colleagues. The first question was whether there are any platforms to matchmake industrial sites to, and so we're going to be covering that. My colleague Jenny McDonald from the KTM will talk about the matchmaking platforms later on. So yes is the answer. There's a question asking if you have to register to be able to see the Word version of the application form. So you don't have to. If you go onto the IEEA website under the Participate in Phase 3 tab, you're taken through you have to go through the Submit Your Idea form because we want everyone to do that first, but then to the application section, there's a copy of the application form and the finance form there that you can review without launching the application process. And there was also a question asking if people will receive a link to review this recording of this event afterwards, which the answer is yes. We'll be sharing the recording afterwards. So I'm going to hand over to Andrew for a couple of questions regarding particular projects, whether they're in or out of scope. Andrew, have you got access to the questions?
So yeah, so thanks, Paul. So there's a question that was raised around energy for waste. So in this case, typically any on-grid generation projects are out of scope. But I think this is a good example of where potentially if there was a waste stream that's being utilised integral to the industrial process, then potentially that's in scope. So I think the message here is as Paul just said, please do make use of the submit your idea option, because the whole principle of having that initial step, it's a very short summary to fill out about an idea, and then the technical team can review that, give some guidance on whether it's in or out of scope, and if need be, the technical team will pick up the phone, talk to somebody who's registered an idea to get a better understanding. So hopefully that gives some indication there. There's another question which was around capturing waste energy on the industrial site. So assuming that a process for that is novel and it's not commercially available and there are barriers and challenges to overcome, then yes, certainly that would be within the scope. It's where it's actually recovering that waste heat from within the industrial process and feeding the generated power back in, hence reducing the overall kilowatt hours import for a site. But again, same point to the previous questions, take advantage of the submit an idea, and that's the whole purpose of finding out a little bit more about what an idea is and giving a view onto the eligibility or otherwise.
And then there's another question, which, so we've not heard, we're about to hear from our colleagues at BEIS in a minute, but I might ask Yasmin if she can comment on this question after I've mentioned it, which is a key challenge at COP26 is persuading the biggest global industrial countries to reduce polluting emissions. Is there work ongoing to export UK design technologies to these countries? Commercial export potential, and will they be showcased in Glasgow? Certainly from the projects that we're supporting at the moment point of view, there is some support through the program. So I talked about the incubation and acceleration support that's provided to the companies, and that can include support for how companies might think about putting export strategies together, for example. And we helped one of the companies with some who was looking at both manufacture in China and also selling to China, with gave them some support on some people to talk to to help them commercialize in China. Yes, we're very keen that these projects, we're keen that they replicate in the UK, but also that they are given the opportunity to showcase UK technologies overseas as well. Both on the commercialization side and potentially on the marketing side, we can provide assistance with that. Yasmin, I don't know if you've got any sort of can make any wider comment on UK support for sort of supporting pushing out technologies from the UK overseas.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Paul. The short answer is yes. The UK government is very keen on being a leader and exporting these technologies to other countries, and within the team that I work in, we try and encourage this exactly as Paul just explained, with the type of incubation support that we want to offer to the organizations that take part in our programs. In terms of showcasing at COP, there is a little bit of that happening. I'm afraid I don't know the full ins and outs of what's happening, but I know that, for example, one of our other programs, High for Heat, which developed appliances and technology for hydrogen heating, I believe they're showcasing at COP. So there is some activity going on there. And we do get, every now and then, we get requests from other countries for exactly this kind of thing. So showcasing technology that we've developed, and we will look to the projects that we're supporting and ask for their help and support, and ask if they are interested in being showcased at these kinds of things. So yes, that is something we would like to encourage and support.
Thank you, Yasmin. So I don't think we have any other questions at the moment, unless any come in immediately. So in which case, I think we'll now due to hand back to Yasmin actually to and her colleague Rob, who will give us the BEIS view on why the IEEA is important and how it fits into some of the wider initiatives that are there are many wider initiatives actually that are happening at the moment within government.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so I'm Yasmin Ali. I'm one of the innovation program managers at BEIS, and I wanted to say a little bit about why we're doing this. So if we go to the next slide, please. The whole overarching point, if I could summarize it in a couple of words, is net zero by 2050. In order to get this, we need an economy-wide transformation. There are lots and lots of different areas we need to decarbonize. So if I put aside some of the big ones like transport and power and buildings, we're still left with industry, which accounts for about 25% of emissions. So it's a really big chunk of the emissions. And this is what we're trying to tackle to help us to get to that net zero target by 2050. So there are lots of government commitments on things like carbon capture, utilization and storage, and fuel switching. So switching industry from high carbon fuels to things like hydrogen or green electricity. But all of that will cost less and have much more of an impact if we first look at energy and resource efficiency. So if we're able to fix that issue at the roots and use as little energy as possible, then it will make all of those other solutions easier to implement, hopefully. So that's why we're keen on the efficiency side of things in industry. So if we go to the next slide, please, Johnny. We have made incremental progress so far, but we really need that big step change to get us to where we need to be. This is the sixth carbon budget, which is set for us by the Committee on Climate Change, highlighted that role of energy efficiency and resource efficiency, and the improvements that they can make. And it looks like in the kind of early 2020s, that area will make the biggest impact in the short term. So it's really something we need to capitalize on, and that's why we're putting government money into it to get some of these efficiency solutions to market and rolled out as widely as possible. And Johnny, I think if you click 2 more times, some more things come up. Thank you. Yeah, so there's innovation that's needed to get us there. This change is not going to happen by itself. So yeah, that's why we're doing all of this. And if we go to the next one, please. So the IEEA is funded through the BEIS Net Zero Innovation Portfolio, which Paul mentioned at the beginning. This is a pot of funding that we have for the next 4 years. So we'll be spending it between now and 2025. It was mentioned in the Prime Minister's 10-point plan that was published last year. The money is divided into lots of different areas across the energy sector. So anything from nuclear to bioenergy to the built environment and all the way to disruptive technologies. That's a bit of a catch-all for other things that we need to do. This particular competition falls within the industry set of funding. And I thought I'd say a little bit more about some of the other funding that we have on the go at the moment. So this, I've ordered this in the order of technology readiness level. So at the early technology readiness level, we've got the Energy Entrepreneurs Fund, which is open to any type of energy technology that fits within the decarbonisation plans that governments have, and it's for development and demonstration of that technology. We ran quite a big round of that earlier this year, and we are looking to run another one. The date is to be confirmed, but I would watch out for that one if that's of interest to you. We've got the Industrial Fuel Switching Innovation Competition, which launched on Monday or Tuesday this week, so that's open for applications at the moment. We're looking to support fuel switch and fuel switch enabling technology for industry, and we're looking at switches to hydrogen, electricity, biomass, wastes, and any other low carbon fuels that are compatible with net zero. This is open for applications until the end of November. The Industry of Future competition is looking to develop technology roadmaps that are, decarbonisation roadmaps that are technology agnostic for industrial sites. If you are an industrial site interested in this, you need to register by, I think it's 2 p.m. today. So look it up, Industry of Future. And if you are interested, then get your registration in today, please. And then the final one on my list here is the IETF, the Industrial Energy Transformation Fund. This one is outside of the Net Zero Innovation portfolio. It's a deployment fund, so it's looking to put technology that's ready to actually deploy in place. And that one is looking at energy efficiency and deep decarbonisation technology for industry. That one is open for applications as well until early December. And I just wanted to say this list is not exhaustive. There are other funding opportunities through other government organisations or arm's length organisations like UKRI and Innovate. And what I would recommend is signing up to the KTN, the Knowledge Transfer Network, to get updates on funding opportunities. So at this point, I will hand over to my colleague Rob, who's been to visit quite a lot of IEEA projects, and will tell you a bit about his experiences of that. Over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Yasmin. So hopefully you can hear me okay. So morning, everyone. I'm Rob. So I'm an Energy Innovation Project Advisor at BEIS. So recently I've been lucky enough to attend a few site visits from the previous rounds of the IEEA. So those rounds sat within the Energy Innovation Portfolio, which was the predecessor to the Net Zero Innovation Portfolio, or the NZIP, that Yasmin mentioned. So I just thought I'd talk a bit about those visits and reflect on my perception of the programme from those. So firstly, I was lucky enough to visit G2O Water Technologies at their site in Daresbury. So as Craig talked through earlier, G2O developed innovative coatings which are applied to membranes, and with their project partner Hydrosist, the membranes are then put to work in a filtration system which was applied at an industrial laundry site at Johnson's in Shaftesbury. So the application of these coatings increases the separation performance of the membranes, improves flow rate and reduces fouling. And all in all, that results in recycling of heated wastewater, which reduces the need for heating and using a lot of fresh water supply. So at the G2O sites, we were shown and talked through the development of those coatings and talked through the processes that were involved. And then at a later date, we were able to visit the industrial laundry site. So from being shown the technology development side to then getting to see the system in action on the industrial site, really showed the success of the program in sort of matching tech developers to industry and really enabling real demonstration of innovative energy efficiency technologies. So that was something which I found quite exciting and is quite impactful, really. And also from the site visits and seeing the data that was gathered, we were really able to take stock of the total savings that projects like these can enable. So in this case, that included significant water, energy or gas, and also cost savings. So as Craig touched on earlier, hearing about sort of plans for commercialization was also really fantastic and shows the impact that the program and of course the hard work of the projects can have. So next slide, please. So another visit which I was able to make, I think this was last week actually, was to the Smurfit Kappa Townsend Hook paper mill, which is in Snodland. And this is the industrial site for a project that's led by the Paper Industry Technical Association with consortium partners CF Proxime, Automation X and Perceptive Engineering. So in this project, a novel simulation aided advanced control system has been developed, and that can be applied to enhance the drying process in the mill. So through process testing, the hopes that this can create a digital twin and virtual sensors that allow for a level of optimization in the mill that can't usually be achieved with conventional control processes. So on this site, again, it was really brilliant to be taught through the development of the technology and then to learn about the real application to an industrial site. And this project also has the potential to save steam and energy use in the papermaking process and also improve the quality control. So there's additional benefits to a lot of these projects as well, aside from just the energy efficiency side. So overall, I think from these site visits, I've been able to see that the program really facilitates the meeting of technological developments to an industrial site and an industrial application. And from that, you can really see the real demonstration of the development of innovative technologies, as well as clear energy efficiency and resource efficiency savings, which, as Yasmin explained, is a really important part of trying to achieve net zero. And another valuable facet of the programme and of the visits is being able to take away information from those who are involved in the projects and the learnings from the projects in general, and then be able to feed that back as information to give to policy colleagues within BEIS, which ultimately informs and hopefully improves future industrial decarbonisation policy making within the UK. So hopefully I'll be able to visit a few more sites soon, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Rob and Yasmin, for and you know, I hope you'd agree it's a really good partnership I think we've got going between BEIS and all the delivery partners to sort of make this program work, and despite all the challenges of the pandemic and some of the extensions the projects have needed, it's been amazing that these projects have carried on through that, and you know, whatever challenges the next round of IEEA throws at us, I'm sure we'll be able to find ways of managing those. So I'm now going to hand over to Andrew Miles from Matrix Moulding Systems Limited, who's going to tell you a bit about their project and some of the support that they've had from the program. Andrew.
Right, good morning everyone. Yeah, if we can have the next slide please. I'm going to be just running people through the project that has benefited from support under the program. It's a project that we've called Soniplas. So if we could take the next slide please. It's a technology which we can apply to the injection moulding sector. Injection moulding in essence takes almost a candle wax type material as the plastics granules goes into the injection moulding machine, is melted and is raised in temperature to the point where its viscosity is such that it can be injected into the mould tool, cooled down and taken out as a moulded part. So one of the important elements is that you have to get the melt hot enough to be able to have a low enough viscosity to be able to force it into the mold. And what the technology does is to embed an ultrasonic sonotrode into the melt flow on its journey between the injection molding machine and the tool cavity. So we've needed to enable the system to be able to be demonstrated and then rolled out across the circa 100,000 injection molding machines across Europe. And so we've needed to ensure the system was retrofittable and could be fitted into both cold and hot runner systems, which are the two types of methods in which people injection mold plastics. What we've achieved there is staggering energy savings by allowing us to reduce melt temperatures as much as 60 degrees C, and using the ultrasonics to offset the associated increase in viscosity that comes with running at lower melt temperatures. The beautiful thing about this technology is that it not only enables someone to save energy by lowering the melt temperatures, but through necessity, what comes in parallel with that is a reduction in cooling time, which means that productivity goes up as well. Next slide, please. So in simplistic terms, we've got to step through a sequence of a few clicks here. So this is the piece of equipment with the sonotrode sitting into the melt flow. And if we click the next one, you'll see then that we vibrate the sonotrode at 20 kilohertz. And that we believe is causing an orientation of molecules in the direction of flow, reducing the pressure. One more click, please. And here's a very visual example of a spiral mold tool that we use. The example on the left has been molded with an injection molding machine with a certain set of settings. Using those exact same settings, we then switch on the ultrasonic flow enhancement technology, and we produce the molding on the right. So it's a really visual explanation of the technology. Next one, please. Through the project, we've needed to step through cold runner system, hot runner systems, and be able to demonstrate those. And we've been running trials at our partner Barclay Plastics in Birmingham. And it was good fun to be able to see the equipment actually going onto the machines and producing some fairly staggering results. Next slide, please. This is just one case study of a packaging part. On the left, you can see the part that would normally be molded at around 230 degrees C. That's a full shot part, akin to a pot noodle size molding. We then stepped down the melt temperature and we achieved a 50 degrees C drop in melt temperature. When we ran the machine without the ultrasonics, it then produced the part on the right, which is reject. It's a short shot. And then when we switch on the ultrasonic flow enhancement, it goes back to being a complete full shot. So that 50 degrees C of heat that we don't need to put in is compensated for with a 50 times less electricity consumption to achieve the same effect of a full molding. We're getting a 27% energy reduction per molded part in this case, and a 20% productivity improvement. Next slide, please. So in terms of the support, incubation support from the project, we've been fortunate enough to have Innovate UK funding in the first instance to get the technology up to higher TRL levels, and then follow on support with this and another project funded under the EEF scheme. But what I'd point out is that there's no requirement to have support imposed upon the management team, which is something I've experienced in the past. We're going to help you whether you want it or not mentality. The support is put together as a bespoke program by the incubation team, a grown-up view of what are the gaps in the skills in the management team. We're a small business, 20 people, so there have been some gaps. We like to think we know what we're good at. We also are honest enough to know when we've got gaps. And the system gave us some absolutely superb support in IP and licensing. Paul personally challenging me on business models, what's the right way to go about taking this to market, and then the team validating the demand by going out and talking to some of the big players to say if such a technology were available, what would their interest be, and that then passes on some very good third-party credibility that the program has been checked by someone like Carbon Trust. So we've been very grateful for the support in addition to the technical development to be able to demonstrate the technologies. That's my last slide.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And yeah, it's been great to be with you on that journey. And as I said before, when you presented, that, you know, this is a technology where the sector may have made savings of, you know, most industrial sectors have made savings over the last years, as Yasmin's chart showed, and typically there might have been 20% savings over the last 10 or 20 years. And then potentially here's a technology that could save 20% across quite a wide part of the sector, just from the one technology. So there's some real step change projects that are happening through the program, and we're obviously looking for the next round of these. If you pop onto the next slide, we going to have the next talk, and then we'll have any sort of further questions that have come in. So do keep putting them in. Feel free to ask questions of all the presenters, including the industrial and technology developer partners as well. But now I will hand over to Jenny McDonnell, who's the knowledge transfer manager at KTN, and she's going to tell you about the support services through the application process, including the matchmaking that we've heard about. Over to you, Jenny.
Hi, folks. Hi, everyone. I had a little technical problem there, but hopefully you can hear me now. So my name is Jenny McDonnell from KTN. I'm the technical lead for thermal energy systems at the KTN within the clean energy and infrastructure team. And I'm helping Carbon Trust and BEIS to deliver the IEEA for this round of funding. Next slide. So I'm going to talk to you today about some of the services that will help you with your application into the IEEA. A lot of this has been covered before, but we're going to sort of put it all together in a nice summary over the next few slides. So we'll talk about how we can help you to find partners. We'll talk to you about how we can identify relative innovative technologies that are eligible for the IEEA. And we'll also talk to you about the application process and how we can help you to submit your application. Next slide. So first of all, help to find partners. We've set up a dedicated networking platform called Meeting Mojo. If you're familiar with the IETF, it's very similar to the networking platform we have for that fund as well. You can register to join the networking platform at the link provided there. As you register, it will ask you for information, and that will form your initial profile on the networking platform. So try and provide as much information as you can. Once you get your login details, though, we would encourage you to go in and update your, improve your profile, because that will help people to find you if they're looking for a particular technology or a particular industrial site. And there's also a button on the account called Message Me to Ask About. So make sure you fill that bit in, because that will be how people search for you. Once you're in the system, you can direct message people that are on there. You can search through the people and organizations, and you'll know that everybody on there is interested in this fund. So that is a big advantage already. You're pushing an open door. The platform will remain open until the end of the competition window, so the end of January next year, and you can direct message people throughout that whole time. As an added bonus, today and tomorrow, we'll have extra functionality that will allow you to have video conferencing with the people on the platform. So you'll notice when you go in, you have a schedule on the menu at the top, and that will show all of the times throughout today and tomorrow where you can say whether you're available or not, and then people will be able to book meetings with you, and you'll be able to book meetings with them on their schedule. And have a video conference that way. And today as well, you'll be able to have a 10-minute discussion with BEIS about the programme, or the Carbon Trust and Jacobs about your project idea. So it's another way to connect with them. If after talking to everybody on the networking platform, you still can't find a suitable partner, then you will be able to come and have a chat with myself, or the team at Carbon Trust, and we will do our best to match you up with a suitable industrial site or technology provider or any of the other partners that you might need. Next slide. The second thing that we can help with is help to find relevant technologies. So if you're an industrial site, maybe you've tried all the stuff that's on the market at the moment, it's just not giving you the benefits that you need. We want to raise awareness with you of the innovative cutting edge technologies that are being developed through the IEEA. So we're developing a technology showcase, and this is a platform that will host 5-minute videos, each one telling you about different technologies that are eligible for the IEEA. And they will talk about a description of the organisation, a description of the technology that's being developed and the benefits that the owner thinks it will deliver, and what they plan to do with the IEEA funding. And then industrial sites will be able to browse those videos, and if there's anything that they think would be of benefit to their site, they'll be able to connect with the technology provider and move on with a partnership, hopefully. So the videos will all be accessible to everybody. They'll be hosted on the Meeting Mojo platform. So again, another great reason to sign up to that networking platform, because those videos might be useful to you too. If you're a technology provider and you would like to provide a video for the technology showcase, first of all, as been said a number of times today, you need to submit your idea to the Carbon Trust to make sure that it is eligible for the IEEA. So fill in that idea form, get the green light from Carbon Trust, and then you'll be able to send them your video to the email that's on the screen at the moment, and they'll upload it into the technology showcase for you. Next slide. And finally, help with the application process. We've heard a lot of information today about the scope, eligibility, and how to apply. We will be able to watch the recording again after today, but there's also the link to the online information about the guidance for the competitions is there. Again, just to drive it home again, get your project ideas into Carbon Trust. That's your first step of the process, and you can do that at the link I've provided there. They'll give you the green light so that you know that what you're doing is eligible, is okay for the IEEA, and then you can start your application. Having now started your application, if you have any questions about the form itself, about the questions that Andrew's talked through earlier on, you can get in touch with Jacobs and Carbon Trust. They're running clinics. You can book one-to-one meetings with them, and they will also review your application prior to submission to make sure that it stands the best chance of being funded. Obviously, they can't guarantee that you'll be funded because that's down to the assessors who'll be scoring it. But with their experience of this fund, they'll give you some hints and tips on how you can strengthen that application and give you the best chance of being successful. I would say get in touch with Carbon Trust as early as possible. This is a very popular service and there'll be high demand for it a few days before the deadline. So don't leave it until a few days before the deadline. Do get in touch with them as soon as you're ready. Next slide. So those are the services for the IEEA, but I just wanted to give a plug for another fund that I'm supporting for BEIS. Yasmin mentioned it earlier, so thanks for Yasmin for doing that, but just to go into a little bit more detail, because it's open to the same audience that the IEEA is eligible for. BEIS' Industrial Energy Transformation Fund, Phase 2 has just opened. It's a £220 million fund supporting businesses with high energy use to cut their energy demand and reduce carbon emissions. And how it differs from the IEEA is this is providing funding for capital investment for industrial energy efficiency and deep decarbonisation. So it's not R&D. You can't do any form of R&D or demonstration through this fund. This is helping you to install things that are on the market or very close to market so that you get the benefit straight away. The autumn window is open now. It's worth £60 million for sites in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. If you're a Scottish site, the Scottish IETF also opened last week, and I'm also helping with that one. So you have funding too. They're the same competitions for the Scottish one. You can either apply to do a feasibility or engineering study to prepare for a future deployment project, or you can bid into one of the deployment competitions to install energy efficiency or deeper decarbonisation technologies at your industrial site. The deep decarbonisation technologies are things like fuel switching and carbon capture, which I know is out of scope for this one. The competitions close at 3 p.m. on the 6th of December, and I've provided a link to the competition guidance if you want to find out a bit more. But that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jenny. So if we move on to the next slide. So that pretty much comes to the end of all of the information that we wanted to present. Obviously, there's been quite a lot there. I'm just going to do a quick wrap up, and then we've got time for some more questions if anyone would like to submit them. So what next? Well, we've probably said it a lot of times today. Please do have a think about what projects that you thinking about that might qualify. Either you're a technology developer that's got a technology that's approaching ready for deployment, or your industrial company that's potentially got project ideas already, or interested in taking part and hearing about the some of the technologies that are coming to us. So in either case, do get in touch. If the project's there, then submit your idea. If you're still thinking about looking for a partner, then use the contact us form on the website to register an interest. Get in touch and tell us you're looking for partners. Then you can review the application. If you are sort of serious about making an application, do review the application process. Think about whether you've got the sort of resources to apply, but we've said lots of times we're here to help. Obviously, these are part-funded projects, so you do need to have the match funding in place to be able to fund the half that BEIS isn't funding, or be able to show that you can secure that funding. But yes, we're very keen to get some demonstrations commenced as soon as we can. As Sabrina said, best to be in the first round if you can. So do start getting in touch with your ideas now. And just to reiterate what Jenny said about the Meeting Mojo networking platform, there's already a number of companies who have put their profiles on there. So do register on there. Do fill in as much information as you can. We're going to leave that up through the competition process. If you're industrial partner, do register as well and go on and have a look at some of the technologies on there. And finally, just to reiterate, the website that we've talked a lot about is www.carbontrust.com/IEEA. So thank you very much for everyone to listening. In terms of questions, there's one new question which I hand over to Andrew. It's a bit general, but it says, any role for manufacturing technology in the scope of the programme?
So yeah, clearly any technology which is going to improve the energy efficiency or resource efficiency of the industrial site, if it's novel, potentially is in scope. So similar answer to previous, do take advantage of the submit an idea, and that opens up the opportunity then for some dialogue to review specific details of an idea.
And we'll allow a couple of minutes to see if there's any other questions coming in. Whilst we're waiting for that, obviously, I'd just like to thank ever so much all of the speakers today, especially the partners from the previous rounds who hopefully persuaded you that this is a good programme to take part in. I'm sure they'll all be thinking about whether to take part in the next round again. And in the meantime, we've posted up the link to find out more, and see all the guidance notes for the next round of the competition. So hopefully we've done a good. There aren't many more questions coming in, so hopefully we've done a good job of explaining the programme to you and made it clear, but obviously we're happy to answer any other questions as they come in. And there is one question just as I was about to finish. So it says, what fraction of project costs are recoverable from award, and what is the minimum and maximum? So there is a table in the guidance note of how much you can claim. So it depends on the size of the organisation, and it also depends on the type of activity and to some extent the level of the TRL of the activity. But generally speaking, and it's all covered by what was the state aid rules and is now in the UK is now the subsidy rules. Broadly, for most projects, the funding percentages are around 40% for industrial, for large companies, which often the industrial partners are, 50% for medium-sized companies, and 60% for small companies, which the technology developers often are. There is some scope for higher percentages for some of the earlier research, if there are research elements to the project at the start, but mostly this is a demonstration program, so those percentages apply. There are higher funding intensities available to some of the, if you've got partners like research organizations or universities, then they can potentially achieve 80 or even 100% of their funding as part of the program. And the percentages do also depend on whether you're a single site or a collaboration. As I say, there's details in the guidance pack. We'll also be producing a sort of short key facts guidance note as well to highlight some of the key areas like that, which we'll be posting up on the website. But hopefully that's been helpful. So there are no other questions. So thank you very much to all the speakers, and we look forward to contact from everyone. Thank you.